Hey everyone, how's it going? This is a 2010 Mark 6 Golf GTI. I'm just going to do a quick video on how to replace the front brake calipers as well as the rotors. There is one video I've seen that is the rotors as well as the brake calipers and pads, and it's shit. So here we go. I've already taken the actual wheel off. That's pretty straightforward. I'm sure anyone can do that. If you can't, you probably shouldn't be doing this. But the first step is going to be this little metal clip here. So I'm going to put the camera down and I'm going to get some leverage into that and flick that little clip out. Try not to scratch the actual calipers. Raised up a little bit there. If I can just get in. There we go. Now she comes. And she's out. Alright, so the next step is around the back side here. You'll see these little caps. There's a little piece of plastic that just flips out. There it is. And that covers a 7mm Allen key. Now I definitely recommend you get Allen key sockets instead of just standard Allen keys, because it'll be a huge pain in the ass. I should mention as well, this is the front left wheel, which also has a little brake wear sensor. So just take care with that. So there's one of these clips here, there's also one down the bottom here, which you can't quite see, but you get the idea. So I'm now going to unbolt those. Alright, hot tip about the brake wear sensor. So this little metal piece, it just slides into that. You see that lip that it's got there, just slides in. Actually snapped it. So I'm going to have to put some super glue or something on there, but should be right. Anyway, on to removing these bolts. Alright, so it's just removing the little bolt here. These bolts, by the way, are also sort of little rails that the caliper slides along, and it may feel like you're unbolting it forever and the travel never stops, and that's because the thread actually undoes, but it'll just sit there and spin. So what you need to do is kind of wedge it and pull it out. So you can either pry it out like that, or you can sort of jam the 7mm Allen key in there and just try and pull it out. But it can be a little tricky. So that's the little rod that goes in there. Slides in like this. And I've just popped it out there. And there's another one on the bottom, so let's get that. Alright, so both those little rod rail things have been removed from the back there. They are all out. And more or less we should be able to pull the actual caliper off. So this is my first attempt. We'll see how stiff this is. Yeah, it's pretty stiff, but it's coming off. Probably going to have to pry that off a little bit, work it off, but you get the idea. It's pretty much ready to come off there. So I'll take that off and then we'll come back. Alright, so just got the calipers off. You can see here one of the brake pads is still in. I'm hanging it on one of the coils of the suspension with this little hanger thing here. Never ever ever let the actual calipers just dangle. It'll damage your brake hose line and then you're totally screwed. It's going to be a shitload more expensive and not generally something you can do at home. Never balance them because it will obviously fall off. So it's just a little golden rule kind of thing. What you'll notice as well is your little piston is here for your caliper. And inside on the back of the brake pad, there's these little 3-pronged clips. I'm going to try and pop it out now. A bit hard one-handed. There we go. There's one part. Ooh, and there she goes. Alright, so that is the old brake pad. There's the brake wear sensor. You can see this thing is super close. These pads have absolutely had it. The other side I think were marginally worse. But the real bad thing here is the rotors. These rotors, it's like it's carved a channel out of it. There's a big lip just here, and an even bigger lip just there. I don't know if you can see any of that, but that is brutal. So these rotors are going to be coming off next. Alright, there's the other pad still there. I'm going to take that out now. That just comes straight out. Real easy. Cool. There we go. So the next step is going to be this little nut in here, and it's got a Torx key in there. I'll find out the exact number and get back to you, but I've got the actual bit here. And also this caliper bracket. Now it has two 21mm bolts on the back sides. So you're going to need a 21mm socket. If you have a 21mm spanner, you could probably get away with it, but it's probably a bit more difficult. And unless you're on a hoist, this is a real pain in the ass because there's no way to actually get your hand in there and get some leverage on it. So I'll kind of show you how I've worked it. But let's get back to this. We'll get this first nut out just here. Alright guys, here's the little Torx key thing bit. So this is a T30, I don't know, came in a set with a whole bunch of them. So if you do get a set of these things, which you're probably better off doing instead of buying just one, this will be it. So it goes in there. It doesn't fit overly well, but it was good enough on the other side. It is definitely the right size, but the actual bolt head, I don't know if you can see, it's probably a bit too close, is a little bit curved on the inside, whereas this is a flat top. You can get that focus. So it's a flat top there, so I don't know if they have little curved top ones, but this does the trick. So I'm going to prop the camera up and we'll get cracking. Alright, so got a little thingo here, and I'm going to stick it in. Let's get going. There we go. It wasn't actually that tight. The other side wasn't either, so it's hopefully not too bad by hand. Some people have used impact wrenches. That would work too, but they came out alright. Alright. Start with the bottom one first. No reason. Oh shit. Oh, I got it. Hey. They're freaking hard. Another thing about the front right wheel is in the nuts screw the other way, so you can have it sitting down here and just put your foot on it and kick it down, but not so much on these ones. These ones you got to lift it up. There's really just nowhere you can get into. Alright. It's be a shitload easier without a bloody hoist. No, that didn't work. I'm going to try my torque wrench. Let's try this sucker. Yep, that's got it. Oh, friggin' hard to get out. Okay, come on, you go. Organize your hands up, okay? Did you break that? Too much. Now, here you can leave this angle like this. I'll get this off, but it's crap. Then I should leave it off. I take off the plan. There we go. Alright, the disc. Now, these ones are pretty rusty. This is my mum's car, by the way. Pretty cactus. I'm gonna get the rubber mallet and give this a whack. Alright, here we go. I don't really give a shit about these rotors. We're getting new ones anyway. There we go. That got it. Ugh. Watch how much rust and shit is on the inside of that. Ugh. Let's get a closer look. There you go. So that's the next step. clean all that crap off so that the new rotor sits nice and flush on that piece. So let's hook into it. Alright, so got my cheap, shitty Bunnings drill, but got this, I think it's brass wire wheel. Works pretty well. Doesn't really scratch up metal too much, but I'll take most of this shit off, so let's get cracking. Just a quick thing with this as well. There's sort of a lip just here. So this lip my thing's on right now, this is where the actual wheel mounts and sits on. Your disc rotor sits up on this higher edge. So right now, I'm cleaning off this little scale here that's on the top. You can see how much rust and crap's in there. I'm going to clean this off right now, where the wheel sits, but this is really important. This upper lip and this surface here needs to be nice and smooth and flat so that your disc rotor sits flush up against that. Pretty tight tolerances with discs and pads and all that sort of stuff, so try and get this just nice and smooth. You can use a bit of sandpaper, I guess, if you want. There is some good videos on just mounting discs and all that sort of stuff, but I'm just going to try and get this nice and clean enough, at least with this wire brush, and should do the trick. Alright, so there's the new rotors. Super high performance TRW, straight from Repco, standard rotors, so that Mum can cut some hectic track days. But not really. They're still $260 each. But luckily, for NRMA, 30% off. How good's that? So, not cheap, but just bog standard rotors that should replace it fine for Mum's insane 9-second quarter-mile driving. So the first trick is, I've just literally sat the rotors on the actual hub. This here, this little countersunk bit is where that funky little Torx key screw goes, and you can just make out just in there is where it actually screws into. So I'm just going to twist the rotor around and line it up there, so we can do it now. Oop. Nope, I'm going to need 2 hands for this. Alright. There she is. Put this little funky Torx screw back in. And until we put the actual wheel back on, all these bolts are going to go in. It's pretty much the only thing holding the rotor on right now, so I'm going to tighten that up a bit. And it was undoable by hand. I don't know what the Torx setting is for this, but I'm just going to do it up tight by hand. That should be right. If you do know any of the Torx settings for any of these bolts, this one, wheel bolts, there's 2 21mm bolts for your caliper bracket. Post them in the comments and I'll put an annotation in there as I'm explaining it, just with the actual Torx settings. So, as I said, I'm not 100% sure. It's really hard to get any form of factory service manual for this car. So, kind of just winging it a bit, but she should be right. So that's back on. Next thing's going to be the caliper bracket, so we'll get that back in. Alright, so giving the little bracket a quick clean up. Not super clean, but not too fast. I mean, if you had some sort of steam cleaner, that would probably be really handy. But it sits like this. So in she goes. Those big 21mm bolts. Slider in there. Derp, it's upside down. Take 2, try that. Alright, and it's in finger tight. Let's tighten it up properly. right now I've got it set on about just a nudge under 50 foot-pounds of torque. Again, not really sure exactly how much, but from how much it took to get it off, I'd say it's just a touch over a shitload of torque. These bolts are pretty much the things stopping the car, so I want to be sure that they're on there pretty well. The torque wrench is going off there at 50 foot-pounds, so it doesn't feel like very much. It's probably a little more than that. Anyway, that'll keep it nice and happy. Alright, so the next thing to do is going to be to spread the brake caliper pistons. And so I've come up the top here, and there's your brake reservoir. You can see that's really full. The moment I actually start to put the cap in, it starts to pretty much overflow. So someone has topped that up in a service at some stage, and there's just too much brake fluid in there. So ideally I'd like to remove some of that, maybe get a syringe and pull some out, just keep it so I can put a little bit back in later. But just be aware of that. As you push the pistons back in your brake calipers, all the fluid's going to go back into the system and it's going to end up there and it'll spew out. So just be careful of that. So let's go around now and let's push our pistons back out. So just a quick thing, I've got one of these cheapy brake piston pusher-inner Duva jiggers, and it works fine for the front. And the one issue though is the piston itself is actually hollow. You can see there. So what I need to do is, I've just got this little piece of metal. You can get any bit of metal, I guess, and I'll just put that up against it so the little screw has something to actually push against, and it'll push the piston back in. Now the back calipers as well, they are a totally different story. You need some fancy ass tool that fits in here. It's got grooves and stuff and little slots, and it actually has to push in and twist at the same time, which is a massive pain in the ass. Bloody European cars. Anyway, I'm gonna get this set up and we're gonna push that piston back in. Alright, so we've got the caliper back on there. It's just loose, it's just sliding on right now. And what we're going to do is just get that into place. Remember those little rail guide rod things? You can see where that needs to line up. I'm going to put a bit of lube on those, slide them in, tighten them back up. I'm going to put that little clip back on, and then that's pretty much it. So there's those little rods again. I've got this stuff. This Bendix. This is ceramic high performance synthetic lubricant. I don't know if we can get that to focus there for us. There we go. 6 grams. It's just a tiny little packet. It actually came in another set of brake rotors and pads for my old XR6 Turbo, but I chuck that on there, and that looked good. And just spread it around a bit. In theory, you should have clean hands and stuff to be doing this, but we gotta get time for that. And I'm sure it'll be fine. I mean, you know, because brakes are like the cleanest part of your car. Just make sure there's no general grit and crap in there. Chunky bits of anything. Anyway, that should be good. There's a hex end, so it's going to go in orientated like that. So let's get that in. Alright, so there it is, just sitting there. Get it to focus. You can see I just need to line that caliper up a little better. So back with our 7mm hex, just set it in there, and probably not something I can do one-handed. Yeah, anyway, you get the idea. Screw that back in, do the same with the bottom one, and again, don't have the torque, but if you got the torque, pop it up, and we'll make sure that gets done correctly. Okay, let's get that in, and then I'll come back to the next step. Alright, so got those little nuts back in here, and the one down the bottom there. Just going to grab those little caps, don't forget these little things, going to stop water and stuff getting in there. Just pop that in, and do the bottom one. Kind of blind here. There we go. And they're both in. And now, it's been pretty tight. Those 7mm hex keys are pretty tight, but the caliper should wobble. It's meant to. It's meant to travel backwards and forwards, grabbing your piston, grabbing your pads. And you notice the pad here. Got a little bit of free play, and that's good. That's what we're after. Right, it's locked in there. It's not going anywhere. But we got that nice little bit of play. That's just so the wheel will actually spin through. But thing's in park right now, it's not going to turn for me. But you get the trick. So, last thing is that pain in the ass clip. So, here she is, upside down again. Alright, it's going to sit more or less like that. These are the loops, make sure they're on the outside. And same with the bottom one. Sorry, on the outside there. And there's no real easy way to do this. It's a real pain in the ass. I'm gonna prop the phone up and I'll get it in there, and I'll see if I can work out a good little way to do it. But the one on the right side was a pain in the ass, and this one's probably also gonna be a pain in the ass. Whew, alright, got the clip in. So the way I did it wasn't exactly easy, but doable. Was first of all get that little pin into its little hole and just sit that there. That's really easy because there's no tension on this. It's like a giant spring. And when you come down here, this is a real pain. Again, try and get that pin into the hole first. It's going to go in a little bit, but what you then want to do is, I held my hand over it like this, kept it in there, and at the same time this little piece here sort of is sitting up here. I pushed it, forced it back in, it flicked down into there, and then it's all in there, and then I just tapped it in with the handle of a screwdriver. But what you'll see now is, with that spring tension on there, it removes that wobble out of the caliper. So we know the caliper can move, because it did before, which is good, that's what we want. But that spring there, this little clip now, it's just going to stop it from wobbling and shaking around. But that's pretty much it. That's your new pads, new rotor. Do the same on the other side. Bolt it all back up with your wheel, and importantly, check your brake fluid level and pump your brakes up before you actually try and get anywhere, because it won't end well if your brakes aren't working. But hope that was helpful. Got any questions, feel free to write them down. Feel free to answer them if you know some of them. And hope you enjoyed. Thanks.